Hi guys, we are here with Jeff Lemire. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Black Hammer seems to have the direction of a great opera, like a modern Watchman. Is that your idea, your goal?
Well, I didn't start off with that kind of ambition. You know, I just had this idea for a story. I always loved superhero comics, but earlier in my career, I never thought I'd actually get a chance to do superhero comics. So this was my idea to do superhero comics my way. And you know, the story just developed from there and got bigger and bigger and more ambitious. And I certainly don't compare it to Watchmen. You know, that's a completely different thing. But I think it's definitely my favorite thing that I've created. Yeah.
So how the collaboration with David Rubin in Black Hammer came up?
Well, I was working with Dean Ormston, who does the main series, and he's fantastic, but he also can be a bit slow sometimes, so we needed to have some fill-in issues. Yeah. So I thought, when I found out David could do one, I was very excited because I was a big fan of his work, and so I came up with a one story for David featuring some of the villains and Black Hammer's daughter, and I had so much fun doing it that it gave me more ideas to do the mini-series with Sherlock Frankenstein, and then to start expanding the universe in different ways, all these other new series that we have coming. So I was just lucky enough to work with David, and you know, he has so much energy to his work, and he's fantastic.
And today you are presenting the spin-off with David Rubin. How this came up, this Sherlock, Frankenstein and the Legion of Evil?
Yeah, well, it came out of that one short story I did with Lucy Weber, the daughter of Black Hammer, sort of trying to explore her relationship with her missing father, and the way she did that was to sort of seek out all the different villains he faced throughout his career, and by getting to know each of the villains now, she learned a little bit more about her father. So when I had that idea for the story, and we'd already sort of done one story with David, he seemed perfect for it. So we decided that would be a great way to explore a different angle of the Black Hammer universe.
The relationship between father and son is really strong in your opera. Why is that?
I don't know, it's a classic archetype I keep going back to. Ever since the beginning of my career with Essex County and then Underwater Welder and Sweet Tooth, it seems to be this reoccurring theme or core relationship that I'm not done exploring yet, so I don't know where it comes from exactly.
It's not intentional.
No, it's just I don't set out to do those stories, they just come to me, so I follow them, you know, and I'm not done with it yet, it keeps coming back, so I just explore it.
AD After That was, for me, one of the best graphic novel in 2017. How this project born with Scott Snyder, and how do you two divided your works?
Yeah, it was interesting. Scott and I have been friends for a number of years. You know, we both started working at Vertigo and DC Comics at the same time, so we bonded through that sort of shared experience of starting our careers and having somebody to talk to about what was going on. And we stayed friends over the years, and at some point he mentioned an idea he had for a short story he wanted to do, which ended up becoming AD. I was already drawing a lot of my own stuff, but I thought it would be fun to do something with him, and at the time it was going to be very short, so I said, yeah, we'll do that. But then as soon as we started working on it, it got bigger and bigger and more ambitious, and I think Scott he started off before comics writing novels, prose, and he wanted to do more of that, so we added this whole layer to the book where it was half prose with illustrations and then half comics. So our working relationship developed from that, where we would do the comics sections sort of old-fashioned Marvel style, where we would just have a conversation on the phone about the story, and I would go without a script and just start doing the comics. And while I was working on the comics, he would work on his prose. And then we would switch, and he would dialogue the comics, and I'd do the illustrations for the prose. And so just that kind of a back and forth, it was just sort of a natural sort of collaboration in that way.
You have a very particular drawing style, particular and unique in my opinion. How do you come up with that style?
Well, I think it just came from years and years of drawing, and then eventually you start to lose all the affectations where you try to draw like other people, and you get closer to figuring out how you draw naturally and just trust it. So it's mostly just from me trying to be spontaneous and trying to keep the work kind of loose and not too labored, and just try to just draw the way that I naturally draw and not try too hard to be photorealistic or to draw like other artists who I admire, but just finding my own voice. And I think some of that came from, I didn't go to art school either, so I was all self-taught. So even all the flaws in my work are natural. They became part of the style, and I just go with them.
You attended school cinema, right? Yes. But you left before the end. Why you left?
Yeah, well, film, I love telling stories, and film seemed like a possible way to do that, but the more that I explored it, the more I missed drawing, and the more I missed the immediacy of comics, where film is a much more collaborative thing, where you have to work with so many different people to realize your vision, and it gets filtered through all those people, and it can be very hard to maintain your vision, where with comics, it's you and a piece of paper and your reader, and it's very direct. I had complete control over the stories, so it just seemed to suit what I wanted to do more, and it suited my personality more, and just being able to sort of, I like working alone anyway, so it's not a great thing for film to work alone. So.
Do you ever think to make a movie out of one of your comics?
I've been thinking about it lately. I've been doing comics now for 15 years, so it's nice to have new challenges. I love comics; they will always be my first passion. But I have been doing a little bit of screenwriting, and I have been thinking again about maybe exploring film with some of my work. But right now is nothing imminent. Just thoughts. But still, as long as I can make comics, I'm totally satisfied. So
yeah. Your storytelling is very cinematic anyway. So, which are your favorite director and movies?
Well, it all starts for me with David Lynch is my favorite. He's sort of my hero in art and in life, so everything starts with Lynch. But aside from him, definitely Kubrick is a big influence, especially the way that visually, the way he frames shots, and I think you can see that in the way that I sort of lay out panels. And
what do you think about comics, superhero comics today? They are still something good or not?
Well, I think the genre itself still has a ton of potential, and I think there's interesting work being done, definitely. But the nature of the way most superhero comics are made now, there's just that by Marvel and DC, they put out so many books every month, and they have to come out every month very fast. So just by the nature of the way they're created and the quantity that they're created in, the quality material is pretty small. There are always great things being done, but
it's rare.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the tendency now seems to be every year, every 2 years to relaunch the universe over and over and over. And I feel like when we were kids, we would read a story or follow a creator over years, whereas now everything's so fast and nothing lasts. It seems nothing seems permanent anymore. So it's hard to make those stories seem like they matter, which is one of the reasons I created Black Hammer, where I could take my love of the genre and do it my own way without having to worry about all the other stuff, and I could control it and do whatever I want with it. So, but I mean, I think the genre has a lot of value still. There's just too many books being made, and they're made too fast, and maybe not always for the right reasons.
There is a work in your career that you consider the best of your career, and why?
It's really hard to pick one, because each work that I do, especially the stuff that I draw myself to, they all are kind of very important to me at certain points in my life. So it's hard to pick one. Essex County was my first book where I got published for the first time, and I found my voice as a writer for the first time. So that one will always be special. And Sweet Tooth is always special to me because I did that for 4 years, and so I lived with those characters for a very long time. And so those two are always special, but whatever I'm working on currently is always my favorite thing, so, which is good, I guess.
How much autobiographic is Essex County?
Not as much as people think. The setting is real. It's set where I grew up, and I certainly drew influence from the people I grew up with and my family, but none of it is directly autobiographical. Often I would take things that did happen in my life, but then make them more dramatic for the sake of the story. Or, for instance, the character of Lester is a lot like I was, but I wasn't an orphan, but that augmented the way I felt as a kid on the page, so I used that. So there's a lot in there, but it's not directly autobiographical.
Which comic artist influenced you the most when you were growing up?
Oh boy. Well, when I was really young, The only comics I could get were Marvel and DC superhero comics. That's all I could get. So I was always a big DC Comics fan, which I think you can see that influence in Black Hammer. A lot of the characters are homages to the characters I loved. But so DC stuff when I was a kid, and then when I was a teenager, the first wave of Vertigo comics happened, so that was very influential. It hit me at the right time when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. So Constantine the Hellblazer was, I wanted to be him. He was so cool. And Swamp Thing. And
everyone wanted to be him.
Yeah. So they kind of kept me going through my teens, and then as I got into my 20s, and then I started discovering, European cartoonists and Indian underground cartoonists, and just a whole new world of comics. So at each point in my life, you kind of find different things that speak to you, which is the great thing about comics. Is there's so many different kinds of creators and different kinds of work being produced now, especially, that really there's something for everybody, and something for whatever you're feeling in your life. You can find a book or a cartoonist that can speak to you.
Do you like also manga?
A little bit. I'm trying to read more. There's so much of it, and if you're not educated, it's hard to know where to start. So I found a few that I loved. I read Pluto, which was I loved it so much, and it was a big influence on Descender for me. And all of Urasawa's work, I read it all after that. And of course, Akira is a classic, that you read. So I'm always trying to find new, good manga. It's hard to know where to start. There's so much stuff. But I do like it, yes.
I suggest Osamu Tezuka.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is the creator of the original story from Pluto.
Yes,
Astro Boy.
Astro Boy. I read that stuff. It's great. Yeah.
So guys, this was Jeff Lemire. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
We see you next time.